Hi, y'all. I've been on hiatus over the holidays. An actual hiatus, not just an extended period of laziness like what I often sometimes do. Apologies to anyone who I may have ignored on Discord over those 3 weeks. But I'm back now, and we're jumping right on into it. We're gonna do that god awful Vice debate that everyone else has already done. My recent absence is the reason this response is many days later than it could have been, or perhaps should have been, but I'm making up for it with rather a long ass sausage. Alright, let's endeavour together, friends.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Liz Landers. I'm Vice News' chief political correspondent, and we are here today to talk about some of the biggest issues dividing women across the country.
Like feminism.
In other words, we're here to talk about feminism.
Oodalally. The quiet part out loud, which I suspect will be a recurring theme.
We know we can't represent everybody's views, but we did try our best to bring together a diverse group of women today.
Do you see what I see?
In today's polarized world, is feminism dead?
Is feminism dead? Good question. Pertinent question. But stupid question. Let's see how many stupid answers we get.
I think that depends on the definition of feminism.
It's cancer.
I strongly think that feminism is more of an action than an identity.
Well, when you conjugate it into verbs, you get the infinitive to feminize. It means to turn something or someone feminine. It's an action that doesn't need to be performed on women and shouldn't be performed on men. Would you agree? I have a sneaking suspicion you would not.
Feminism has splintered off into so many different areas that you can look at people like Sheryl Sandberg who say you should just get another nanny if you feel oppressed. And if we're talking about that kind of feminism, yeah, it's pretty dead.
The kind of feminism where privileged, out-of-touch women tell the impoverished peon masses to eat cake? Yeah, I don't think that shit's dead, my dude. On the contrary, the new aristocracy is just enabling women's cake habit.
As long as the human race exists, feminism will never be dead.
It's looking that way, isn't it? Unless it occurs to you that the human race existed for hundreds of thousands of years without feminism, and after 100 or so years with it, we're almost on the brink of collapse. Perhaps it's nature's way of getting rid of us, and that's why we call it cancer.
I don't know that it can die.
Well, no man can kill it. Not even if he identifies as a woman.
I'd say it's alive and well. I'd say that it's also very nuanced, and I think what it looks like is going to differ depending on where you are in the world. For me, I just see it as a lens, which isn't necessarily antagonistic or protagonistic. It's just a useful tool.
Yeah, it's a lens. Like a magnifying glass. It's a useful tool for 19th century private investigators who exist in fiction. But over here in reality, it's only ever used by small children to sadistically burn ants. Do you want burned ants? Because that's how you get burned ants.
I don't think that we can really term what's going on as feminism because it looks so different to, I think, the earlier feminist movement. So in that way, I would say it's taken its last breaths of life. It's dying.
Sydney, mate, I like you, but you're deluding yourself here. I know a lot of us like to think feminism is dying and being cannibalized by the modern phenomenon we call wokeness, the BLMs and the Antifas and the rainbow flag crowd and whatnot. But all you're doing is calling it something else, and that does not make it go away. I mean, ask any of those oikophobic minoritarian cultists in question if they are feminists, and you will get a swathe of emphatic yeses. And even those who say no will nevertheless unquestioningly parrot every feminist talking point like broken clockwork. A rose by any other name will still prick you in the eye with its thorns. Is Marxism dead? Is communism dead? No. It only shifted focus from class politics to racial and sexual politics. And now it's even worse. It's even more widespread and even deeper ingrained into the corridors of power. And feminism is not dead. It only expanded from anti-male dogma to anti-white dogma, anti-heterosexual dogma, anti-cisgender dogma, and so on and so forth forever. This isn't even a random analogy, by the way. Marxism and feminism are stages of the same disease. Stage 1 cancer is called cancer. When your cancer progresses to stage 4, it's still cancer, it just has a slightly different name. You wouldn't go ahead and claim that you no longer have cancer, or that your stage 1 cancer has been defeated, or sidelined, or cannibalized by your stage 4 cancer, unless you are in the kind of deluded, smooth-brained denial that got you to stage 4 in the first place.
Yeah, I definitely think it's getting more and more radicalized, for sure. So it's definitely still alive.
Correct. That's the most succinctly correct answer any of you have given. Feminism is only getting more radical and more extreme and more accelerated in its control of the Overton window. The more human souls it steals, like the baby-eating lizard vampire it is, the more alive it becomes. The question is, what are we going to do about it? And if you're denying that it's even happening, your answer by default is nothing. We're going to do nothing about it. These are the dangers of the white pill, folks. Don't let your guard down. Don't rest on your laurels. Don't simply pat yourself on the back just because you're doing well. Put down the fiddle, friend. Rome is burning all around you.
There might be a lot of terms that I don't know, like political jargon and stuff.
Political jargon like what? Women?
But I believe in the advancement of women, whoever considers themselves a woman.
Look at that. Whoever considers themselves a woman. That's where we are with this fruity little club. If feminism ever could be called a secular movement, that dream is over, folks. They're not concerned with worldly things, with materially definable things. They already conquered that world. And now they're invading the infinitely expansive world of abstractions. And they're conquering that too. Reality is whatever we say it is. And if you're not on board with the reality that we say is reality, then we don't believe in your advancement. They'll keep going until everyone considers themselves a woman. That's how determined they are to erase the very concept of human males from existence. So if any of these squabbling pundits starts complaining about how women are being erased, I am going to headbutt the universe.
Like, honestly, I think as a girl, you have equal opportunity in the world. I think there's benefits. Like, for example, we have quotas for women in specific jobs that are given to us that aren't given to men.
That's not equal opportunity, that's more opportunity. I know that's what your point was, but you've got to start the argument where it starts. But well done for making a salient and true point about quotas.
So yeah, I would say it's easier being a girl.
Just from a viewpoint over here, though, it seems there's a lot of pretty privilege in what you're saying, and that you're white.
There are no quotas for pretty people, you dumb white bitch! And there are definitely no quotas for white people. There was only the opposite. This, what she just gave is an example. An actual example with an actual paper trail of a privilege that only benefits non-white persons and non-male persons. And you thought you could deflect away from gender by talking about race, but all you did was shoot yourself in the foot. What? Oh. Sorry, not sorry.
And you present...
Do you think I'm pretty? Thank you.
I think that you present in a way that beauty standards have accepted.
Beauty standards have accepted 300-pound women in G-strings twerking on the skeletal remains of every dead president. Beauty standards have accepted £300 men waving their junk in children's faces for money as long as they present themselves as a caricature of a woman. And none of this is or ever will be good enough for you, Ms. whatever your name is, because you ain't got no alibi.
And so they call me ugly on the internet all the time. They be roasting me daily, I swear to God.
I don't mean to say I think you're gorge. I just mean that there a certain value that we give to certain bodies.
Certain bodies and certain identities. Namely, in both cases, women. That was the pretty girl's point, and you haven't refuted it at all. You just tried to insult her by calling her pretty and then retracting it, and by calling her white, which you also are. So you never have to think about your privileges. You just insult anyone who points them out. And you get away with it because you have that privilege. You don't appear to be able to talk without shooting yourself in the pelvis.
What's stopping you? As a woman.
That ignores a lot.
No, that's you ignoring a lot. That's you ignoring the entirety of the question you were asked. See what I mean? You're ignoring your female privilege by moving the goalposts to anywhere else.
It is a very privileged label, right, to be able to say that you're feminist.
It's a privilege to be able to feminize people. That's why poor countries don't tend to do it. They can't afford to demasculinize people, given that masculine people create wealth, feminine people consume it.
Right, and I say that because I come from a working class background of Dominican immigrant parents. My mother would not necessarily identify as a feminist.
Evidently, she hasn't been colonized.
I look to my mother, and I do think of her as a feminist. A lot of my ideas and my empowerment comes from seeing her, like, survive and put food on the table.
You see that? If a man identifies as a woman, you just have to accept it and respect it, no matter what, or else. But if your own mother does not identify as a feminist, fuck her, she's a feminist anyway. The concrete is abstract, and the abstract is concrete. Reality is what we say it is, at every level. And curiously enough, it's always the opposite of what can be measured as reality. This is Gnosticism, folks. It's not just a cult, it is a religion. And you are welcome to it, but it should be separate from the state. Please.
When I'm thinking about feminism, I'm always thinking about who's not part of the conversation.
Men. Well, all right. There might be a couple of men in the room with you. Shall we say, anyone who is even remotely in favour of masculinity is not part of the conversation. Well, all right, I guess Pearl and Sydney are in favour of it, and they're in the conversation, even though most of you would rather they weren't. So, here you go. Men who are even remotely in favour of masculinity are not part of the conversation. You have your answer. Look around you. Nowhere to be seen, right? Except maybe operating the cameras and faintly whimpering in the background.
What are the barriers? How do we think about equity? How do we think about self-empowerment and agency and having a voice, right? And having choice, and thinking about our basic human rights, education.
There are increasingly few male students and vanishingly few male teachers. There are no quotas in place to redress this imbalance.
Access to health.
Women have reproductive rights and the right to bodily integrity. Men do not.
Homes.
The vast majority of homeless people are men.
Like having bread, having food.
You got me there. Men get a lot more free bread than women do because they occupy most of the prison space.
And those things are very important, right? And they're at the crux, right, of what a lot of us here know that we need. It's like there are the barriers, right, that we constantly ignore that are very much systemic.
Yes, you're very good at ignoring your female privilege. That's what intersectionality is for. Ignoring your female privilege. using absolutely anything as a placeholder for female oppression when you inevitably can't point to any female oppression. It could be anything. You're fat, you're lopsided, you're left-handed, you're gluten intolerant, you're allergic to cats, you have a birthday in the winter, your address contains your unlucky number, your toilet faces east and it gives you bad feng shui, and you're a fucking Gemini. Anything but the fact that you're female. Observe as it happens again.
You said that there's like barriers. I want to know what barriers in the U.S. today as a woman.
Well, as a woman or as a woman of color? Let's be specific.
As a woman. I said as a woman.
Well, no, I can't answer as a woman.
Because you have no answer as a woman. Every example you just gave is in an area in which men are the ones unrepresented and ignored. So you change the subject to being black or disabled or whatever. Meanwhile, you don't give a shit about black men or disabled men. You deserve the gibs more than they do because you're a woman. Why? You have no answers. Only distractions, only obfuscations, only this fancy little dance routine you do, circling around the fairy ring until everyone forgets what the fucking point was. You suck, dude.
Physically, pound for pound, we are born as women and we have less lean muscle mass than men.
Be thankful that you're still allowed to say that in any context other than competitive sports.
And so therefore, there are policies, there are things to help women physically, like, for example, I believe being able to carry a firearm and being able to use that safely to defend yourself against men who are born naturally with more muscle mass than a woman.
Why, yes, you had best stick to your guns, so to speak. So whatever you do, don't vote Democrat. Right?
I keep hearing the term equity. What would a world that has equity look like?
Communism.
Like, would it be 50% of everyone in the same jobs? Would it be like prison, 50%?
That's equality.
50%.
Equity does not mean 50%. Gotcha.
So,
Yeah,
so what does equity look like?
So equity is generally described as a state of fairness because historically a lot of people have been arguing for equality, but what does that give us? Like 0.5 of the 1% being woman. This doesn't really do anything for us.
Okay, so what would the correct proportion be? It's 50, isn't it?
And so people have talked about equity instead, which is instead of sameness, it's fairness.
Equality of opportunity has long since been achieved. That's why you changed your shtick from equality to equity. Equity means equality of outcome, which is sameness at the expense of fairness. What you are saying is the opposite of reality, the opposite of the truth. Sometimes you do it on purpose. Sometimes you're just a face-flapping moron trying to sound smart. Usually both.
And this would mean that we remove systemic barriers to engage in society, not just for women, but also for everyone.
So which barriers?
Those barriers that you don't believe in.
Those barriers that you can't name, or point to, or enlighten anyone as to what the hell they are, no matter how many times you are politely asked.
Like what barriers do we need removed? Because that's my statement. I'm not stating anything else. I'm stating women versus men.
It's very silly.
Like so what barrier?
I just silly. The question is
a fair
silly.
question.
So, yeah, but I'm
It's
saying,
not a fair question. It's
how is it not a fair question?
Kind of proving the point of why what people, especially black women, other people who are anybody who's not white.
Tell me there are no barriers for women without telling me there are no barriers for women. Tell me over and over again
Why we hear feminism and we don't want that label because it means, I'm just gonna say, it means that. Like, it means that.
That person you just pointed to is not a feminist. She's criticizing it. That's what you don't like about feminism. People who don't like feminism.
You've already gotten to a pinnacle of whatever you think your happiness needs or whatever your survivalist needs are when there are people on lower end who are trying to survive, who are trying to get to a point of what should be normal based on what other people have.
Yes, and those people, those other people who deserve help, who deserve rights, who deserve representation and are not getting these things, those people include men. But feminism does not include men. And it systematically shuts down anyone who does.
It sort of sounds like you're saying feminism is not always inclusive, then.
Right. It's most of the time it's not inclusive.
No! Shit! All right. Time for question 2. Good Lord, this is going to be a long video.
What is the biggest issue, then, that feminism faces?
The biggest issue that feminism faces is that it poisons, cripples, and chokes to death everything it comes into contact with. And as long as it thrives, there is no end in sight, other than the complete destruction of the host. In that way, it is orders of magnitude more deadly than biological viruses. Those things tend to mutate into benign strains that can keep the host alive for as long as possible, and maybe even live in synergy with it. But the mimetic culture virus we call feminism has so far only become more toxic with each passing generation, shutting down more and more of the vital organs of our infrastructure. It occupied our universities, it occupied our schools, it occupied our workplaces, our legal system, our media, our hospitals, our churches, our family lives, and now it is occupying our police forces and our military. And no matter how bad it gets, people will still tell themselves that we've totally defeated it. Don't worry about feminism, guys. It's dead. It's over. It's so 2016. Most people who have the virus don't even know they have it. Because they don't know what it looks like not to have it. And they too will die in a stagnant puddle of their own ascetic bile with no idea what hit them. In short, the biggest issue that feminism faces is itself. It is its own worst enemy. It is also the human race's worst enemy. And if you'll pardon my bluntness, that is where my priorities lie. The rest of your answers were more hokey bullshit that completely misses the point, so you're just going to skip to the next segment.
How many of you would identify as pro-choice? Let's do a show of hands for pro-choice.
I feel like pro-choice is pro-life, though. But...
Yeah.
Okay. So if by being pro-choice you are also pro-life, then you'll also be putting your hands up for pro-life. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, and folks who identify as pro-life?
Huh. You will not. Okay, so pro-choice is pro-life, but pro-life is not pro-choice. Make it make sense, folks. A equals B, but B does not equal A, where A is A and B is B, where equals equals equals, but equals does not equal equals. And these people are lecturing us on what equality means. I suppose you could say pro-choice means in the event that a pregnancy could prevent a threat to the mother's life, the abortion could save her life, hence it's pro-life. Okay. But in the same vein, you could say pro-life means giving the child the choice to live. Hence, it's pro-choice. And where the pregnancies that threaten a woman's life are really quite rare, the abortions that threaten a baby's life, it's 100%, isn't it? That would be the whole bastarding point of an abortion. So where in a blue moon hovering over Sam Hell in a month of Sundays are you getting whatever's going on in your heads? It's just we're better than you, isn't it? It's pro-choice is everything and pro-life is nothing. You haven't even begun the discussion yet, and you've already decided that your opinion is the only answer. Personally, I'm not coming down hard on either side here. I certainly don't feel the need to identify as a dichotomous answer to a complicated question. But in this small sample of subjects, the pro-choicers have already displayed themselves as impossibly arrogant. And I mean impossibly. Sorry to burst your bubble, but if 2 + 2 = 4, then 4 - 2 does in fact equal 2. Just saying. Woo!
Why do you identify as each?
You've gone from legal, safe, rare to, yeah, I'm so proud, let me beatbox in front of the Planned Parenthood. Yeah, I got murder on my mind.
I'm going to assume they edited out the part where Sydney explained why she's pro-life, and they just cut to the part where she simply described the reprehensible conduct of pro-abortion the activists. Like, I'm against feminism, but not just because feminists are assholes. It's because they're actively removing men's human rights, and I think men deserve those rights. But yeah, this whole event is obviously being put through a paper shredder in the edit, so Lord knows what actually went down and in what order.
You need to ask about what are people celebrating, right? They're celebrating access.
Well,
We're not
well, that's
celebrating
okay.
killing kids. Like, that's
But
not what
then
it
why,
is.
well,
It's not killing kids. Okay, which word's definition are you changing to suit your demands? Kids? Or killing? Or both?
well, so this is what I'm
Right, so
saying.
like, here's the thing. When we're talking about access to reproductive health and to abortion rights, right, and to being pro-choice,
It must be awful nice having those kind of rights.
listen, that's your body, you do you.
The child
If
is
you
not your
decide-
body.
As I go.
A baby.
It seems they can't decide amongst themselves what they're redefining things as. Small point, by the way. Serious face, smug face, smug face. I mean, this is just me, but I find it very difficult to trust anyone who advocates for infanticide while wearing such a smug face. Or whatever term with which you are replacing infanticide. Counter-birthing the younglings, whatever. But, hey, do what you like with your face. Just don't kill kids. How's that for a compromise?
It's so scary for me to hear people calling like guns the biggest equalizer for women, but taking their choices away from them at a policy level.
Why is that?
Having a gun is an equalizer.
It is.
Having rights is an equalizer.
Can I have some? Look, human rights, let alone gun rights. Hello? Is this thing on?
Yeah, that's
Having
right.
choice is
Right,
an equalizer.
just like a gun right.
And in this country,
41 forms
the
of birth
policies
control.
that are pushed
41.
to continue perpetuating patriarchy.
Patriarchy. In which women have 41 forms of birth control. Which, yeah, sorry, they talk over each other. Like, a lot.
And anti-women, like taking the autonomy away from women, it is heartbreaking to see women pushing that propaganda. It's
41. If men had that much opportunity for their own autonomous, privately administered birth control, there wouldn't be all these unwanted pregnancies. If the government didn't forcibly extract men's labour to pay for your children, you might actually use the 41 forms of birth control. Just a thought or two.
all brainwash. Like you.
Oh,
it
it's
is-
brainwash because you don't
I think-
agree with
no,
me.
I
so
because
therefore
I've
I'm
been brainwashed. I have.
Me without popcorn. I guess I just have to make do with booze.
Lived deeply institutionalized.
Man,
I have lived under
I-
Islam. I'm not interested in any of that. Like, there's no like
You're not
guilt
interested
for
in
me.
human-
No, I'm not interested in like
living.
thinking.
Yeah, no, fucking skip.
A lot of times when we're talking about access to reproductive health, for me, I'm thinking about
You see that? What are you nodding about, Switch? How's your reproductive health? How's the reproductive health of all those underage pen pals you have? Oh, ain't I a stinker?
it's the oppressive state of saying, I will force you to have a child even against your own will, right? Especially when you're thinking about women and girls who would be forced to have these children.
Yeah, that's rape. Forcing someone to have a child against their will, yeah, is called rape. It's already entirely illegal. When men do it, I mean. When women do it to men, it's called nice. And the state will help her steal his seed and his life savings. I get what you're trying to say, but sorry, you got to call things what they are, and that is not what abortion laws are. A medical intervention can be forced, but the absence of a medical intervention can only be the absence of force. An injection can be mandated, but there is no such thing as a mandatory not injection. If the state is arresting doctors or patients for participating in certain medical interventions. There is indeed force being applied there, but no one is forcing nature to take its course in a pregnant woman other than Mother Nature herself. Contrary to popular belief, Mother Nature is not a feminist either. That'll be why you hate her so much.
Why do you think that abortion has been so tied up in this feminism conversation?
Interesting question.
Pearl, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
I think women want to sleep around and not have any consequence for it.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah!
An illustrative moment of honesty, ladies. I didn't know you had it in you.
Yeah, instead of, taking personal accountability and being on birth control, they just want to, do whatever they want.
Oh shit, we can't say it's not true. We just admitted that it is. We're gonna have to skip right over the otherwise obligatory "it's not happening" phase and head straight for the "it's happening but it's a good thing" phase.
You say this like it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like you said.
Can I also ask, do you have any care to empower women, or is disempowering women part of your, steez?
Personal accountability is empowering. You can't have empowerment without personal... Do you want women to have agency? Because you can't have agency without personal accountability. If you don't face consequences for your actions, then you're not even interacting with the world. Never mind being empowered, you're just a null object. A disembodied spirit floating through a world of other people's cause and effect. Jesus wept, what a sad, frustrated non-life you must live.
To see this as shame, insult, guilt, need to be right, okay. Why is it empowering to sleep around?
Good question. I wonder if anyone will answer it.
No,
Why is
what
that
I'm saying
empowering?
is, I feel like you do, take, the way you speak on women is very sort of women just don't want to do this. Women just don't have this.
They're called standards. You might want to give them a try, love.
Women just wanted this.
Maybe I should
and I
change my
wonder
term.
why
Maybe I
you
should
have
say-
so much hatred towards women.
I don't hate
Where
women.
does that root in? It
I
sounds
don't hate
like
women.
you do.
And there it is. You hate women. Never fails. So let's look at the sweepstakes, folks. Who had 20 minutes and 45 seconds? You are a wiener. There we have it, folks. You said a true thing. You must hate women. Bitch, you hold women to the lowest possible expectations. To the point where your only standard for womanhood is considering yourself a woman. That's less than zero. That's a minus expectation. Even a man can achieve peak womanhood just by wearing a fucking label, as far as you're concerned. Then this chick comes along expressing the slightest positive expectation, the thinnest passing recommendation that women might want to practice an iota of self-preservation, and she's the one who hates women, you stupid, 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 stupid cunt.
I am a woman.
That doesn't mean you don't have
I could be
self-hate.
black and still be internalized racism.
Exactly.
Maybe she only hates herself because she's white. Sorry, not a thing, I forgot.
I'm saying specific things that you're saying, women don't want to work, women don't want to this, women want to sleep around. Where did you learn these belief systems from?
Women. She learned these observations from the women who go, hell yeah, as and when they are observed. Going, hell yeah.
Hell yeah, we do.
Yeah!
It happened 63 seconds ago. 27 inches from your fucking eardrum, you daft bint.
Because, okay, the question was, why does abortion keep getting brought up? 40% of women that have had abortions have had 2 or more. 40%.
Good for them.
So what is...
What?
Percent.
Good for
so
them.
what does that say to me? That means you're using it as a...
My face went.
That means you're using it as a form of birth control. And they don't track the 60%.
What kind of abortions?
Can you let me finish? They don't track the 60% to say who in the future has abortion. So to me, it's why are they dying so hard for abortion? They want to sleep around with no consequences, even though you have 41 forms of birth control.
I like this woman. And I like Sydney. Does that mean I like women? I can't stand the raspy termagant on the bottom right. nor the howling mecha orc on the bottom left. Does that mean I hate women? Pro tip, women doesn't mean all women. It means some women. Nobody hates all women, not really. I wish I could say nobody hates all men, but, you know, feminism.
Who does that benefit? I don't think that benefits women. I think actually that benefits men because it means that men can have sex with you without consequence.
Really, Jogger?
It means that you can sleep with whoever you feel like, great, but there are consequences because women are the ones who get pregnant and carry babies and give birth.
41 forms of birth control, not including the abortions. And she doesn't have to raise her children if she doesn't want to. Adoption, safe haven, abandonment, etc. And she doesn't have to pay for her children if she doesn't want to. You know who does have to support their children, even if they didn't want to have them or raise them, or even if they didn't know they existed, or even if they do want to raise them, but they're not allowed to because they're men? Gee, let me think, it's men! You know, a lot of people are looking at the Hungarian system and they're going, oh, wow, the government is paying women to have children. What a great idea. Why don't we do that? I'd be up for that. What a revolutionary idea. Shut up and take my money. Are we seriously gonna just pretend that we don't already do that and that we've been doing it for ages? When a woman has a child, she never has to lift a finger. The state will steal from the father, or whoever she claims is the father. And if they can't track him down, they'll just steal from the taxpayer to subsidize every poor decision a woman makes. Do you see what I mean? Even people who are ostensibly opposed to feminism are nevertheless beating the same drum in time with it. And blindly living in this fantasy world where it's still prehistoric times and there isn't a global big brother machine cracking down on everything men do and incentivizing everything women do. Has it done us any favours? Paying women to have children through redistributed wealth. It's not increasing the native population, is it? It's not even sustaining it. It's just replacing us with single mother families and filling up thousands of high-rise man deserts across the country, breeding grounds for directionless reprobates who have nothing to fill the fatherless holes in their lives except daddy government. For decades, this shit has been slowly replacing the stable family lives that used to keep this society glued together. Any of you who are worried about the second great replacement, you might want to turn a critical eye in the direction of the first one. Maybe it's the reason the second one is happening. I'm sure I'm pissing you off now too, right-wingers, but you'll notice I'm still pissing off the feminists just as much. Because unlike you, I'm not too chicken shit to go there. My job.
I want to talk about transgender issues. Should trans women be included in feminist conversations? How about in women's spaces?
Yes, they're women. What's the question?
The question is that thing you just answered. You said yes, remember? Were you just randomly saying yes into what you thought was a silent room? Dude, why do you even come to a debate if you're that obnoxiously confident that there is no debate?
Pearl,
Trans women are women.
Reality is what we say it is. What? I don't understand how anyone can argue with that.
So I want to come at this from the position of an athlete.
Oh, Jesus.
Called it. When it's women are in danger from men because men have more muscle mass, it's just, just demure nods of agreement. Of course women are in danger from men. Men pose more of a physical imposition. Oh, hey, shall we talk about sports? Oh, Jesus. I knew you'd go there. Are you going to say trans women have more muscle mass than women? That they pose some kind of physical imposition? That's so not true. And if it is true, it's not relevant. And even if it's relevant, you're a transphobe. Oh my God, I can't even.
I think as female athletes, we work so incredibly hard for the little opportunity there is in women's sports.
Would this be a barrier for you?
There's no barrier. There's less opportunity in some industries.
That's what a barrier is.
There's less. It's not. No.
But a bunch of bearded, muscle-bound, 7-foot berserker warriors posing as women, despite being twice as fast and 5 times as strong as any of the female contenders, is not a barrier to the female contenders. It's the only time you can point to a hypothetical barrier faced by women, and it's in service of denying an actual barrier. And you do it while sporting a shit-eating grin, as though you're owning anyone but yourself. How do you people function? Everything is the opposite of reality to you. Do you put food in your ass and expect to shit out of your mouth? Calling it now, by the way. It'll happen, if it hasn't happened already. Come to think of it, there's probably a Vice article out there somewhere about that very thing. I tried shoving avocados up my ass until I threw up. Here's what happened.
And so it's like you're taking away the little opportunity that we're given and we all work so hard for, and you're just giving it back to biological guys. It's like this will be the end of women's sports.
Have you tried confidence?
Eli.
Have you tried women's ways of knowing?
Hold on, Minnie.
Sorry,
Eli.
confidence can't make me bench what a guy benches.
I don't
Confidence can't
understand
make
why
me
you guys
6'7".
are so hostile. She's sharing her
And confidence
experience
can't make
in
me
a
6'7".
specific
No, she's
field.
sharing
And I'd have to
trans
go.
No, she's
yeah.
not. She's a woman who's had an experience.
It's always the other.
Dude, you can't even get women to use a public restroom one at a time. Trying to get them to speak one at a time. It's like trying to get locusts to keep themselves to themselves.
You guys are so obsessed with your own experiences and your own existence, and yet when a woman is sitting here telling you, I feel as though this is unfair and this is compromising and this situation is not helping women, you guys are like, meh, meh, meh. But when you're like, I'm a black person that did this, 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 and this, then it's valid and fair and viable.
Yes, black women are more important than white women. But sports women are not more important than sit on their ass complaining about shit women. Sports requires effort. See? Having an identity does not. To repeat, that's what intersectionality is. Stringing together this thin web of excuses to be as lazy and entitled as humanly possible. You can't reason these harridans out of it any more than you can convince electrical currents not to take the path of least resistance. I realise you're not really trying to, Sid. You're just, ranting, but hey, so am I.
How tall are you?
5'11" and a half. I'm tall.
I'm 5'8". I am a trans woman. You would crush me.
Have you tried being confident? Hey, Krang, you really missed a trick there. That is not okay. She sounds like Krang. It's because she sounds like Krang.
Trans women who have been on hormones for between 1 and 3 years, depending on the organization, have the same competitive abilities.
The study that you're referencing had like 7 people participated.
That's misinformation, by the way. I'm referencing several different studies. I'm a trans woman and a researcher.
It's getting personal. I don't want it to be personal.
How was that personal? They were talking about data. When Chuckles down there started saying, you hate women, you just go, I sleep. But when Flock of Seagulls up there makes a statistical conjecture and someone asks for clarification, you go, oh, hey, come on, now you're just hurting people's fifis. Do get to fuck.
A space where we're told that our opinions don't count because they're not the right kind of opinions, and we're constantly shouted over and talked over, regardless of what we look like.
Well, what do we have here? A victim fight. Did anyone not have this on their bingo card? It's the free space, isn't it?
Because there's one group in society that basically takes precedence, and it's frustrating. So yeah, of course, it's frustrating.
No, I'm oppressed. Look how oppressed I am. It's hilarious.
Because when we try to talk about it, we get shouted down, we get told to be quiet, we get spoken down too as well. So there's hostility there for plenty of women.
Let's try to make this an opportunity to speak.
You're literally a white woman from Australia. You live in a bubble and you're pissed that voices that have been silenced forever finally can be heard.
Hey, moderator, She's actually saying fuck you because of your race, fuck you because of your nationality. Might that be construed as getting personal? No, you're gonna silence Sydney for talking about research data, but you're gonna let this cackling banshee just go ahead and get all this racist, xenophobic hate speech off her chest. Good-o. I'm sure she appreciates and acknowledges this flagrant favoritism from which she benefits. Gee, I guess not. How weird.
Okay, we're having a conversation about transgender women participating in sports, and I wanted to allow more people to participate.
The question was, should trans women be included in feminist conversations? I have another question. Should trans men be included in feminist conversations? No one ever asks that. Funny that, isn't it? And I'm pretty sure the accepted intersectional answer is yes. Because, of course, us feminists are so very inclusive. Should men be included? No! This is about women! Yeah, but surely trans men are men. Yes! But they're trans men! They're not the same. Uh-huh. And trans women are trans women. That's not the same as women. These questions are hostile, and you're making me feel very unsafe! In case anyone's wondering how to make sense of all this, or the closest approximation of sense, trans women, that's male to female, are included in the Holy Order because they have relinquished their masculine identity. Thereby they have paid the spiritual entry fee to get into feminism. They've paid the tithes so as to absolve themselves of their original sin. Whereas trans men, female to male, are also included because they've already paid their dues by being born into the everlasting burden of a female body. They never had the original sin. What is a man? A piece of work. An empty vessel with no intrinsic positive identity. A walking abortion. A burden on the world who only lives to atone for the space he takes up by bearing the burden of others. And what is a woman? A victim. That's the only consistent axiom in this gender cult. They won't admit it, but it's what they believe. It's how the subjective and the objective are interchangeable. And I'm sorry, but a woman is an adult female who needs help opening this is part of the same paradigm. A woman is someone who needs help. Now let's move on.
How about beauty standards? We talked a little bit about this. This got brought up at the beginning. How does that tie into femininity?
Sorry, I'm very into this idea because I do think it is one of the larger intersections that just doesn't get very discussed.
You already discussed it, even though it was irrelevant.
Which is, like I was talking about before, barriers and friction are placed up around bodies. And the fatter I get, the older I get, the less people will listen to me, the less value I will have for society.
People don't listen to you because you're full of shit. Sorry, some people don't listen to you on account of how full of shit you are. But the bullhorn maze complex of smear merchant rags like Vice will listen to you because you're full of shit. They love the smell of your shit. They don't negatively judge you for being as hideous as you are, but you do negatively judge others for not being hideous. You're the one putting up barriers. You're the one applying friction, while society pedestalizes you and carries you on its shoulders for doing so, you dumbfounded, scatterbrained, miserable pile of secrets.
So You know, I'm already starting out as a woman with no legs. If I had something on my face, I have my beauty. That's one of my privileges. I have my whiteness. That's one of my privileges.
I'm sick of your racism. Fuck off.
As a Black woman, one of the most integral parts of the beauty conversation has been colorism.
I'm sick of your racism. Fuck off.
As a Black Latina woman in my community,
I'm sick of your racism. Fuck off.
Jordan?
Beauty standards are toxic bullshit hierarchical nonsense.
Okay, not racism. Thank you. I'm going to hear you out.
And I say that as someone who has spent over a year collectively of my life in eating disorder institutions.
That's really a health issue, isn't it? Health is associated with beauty, but they're certainly not the same thing.
Because I have tried to put my body through hellish things to meet these beauty standards, which more often than not are not based in reality.
Okay, I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to think it.
They're typically trends. They're created to push things. They're extremely useful for marketing, but they don't serve anyone's health. They don't serve anyone's self-esteem.
More often than not, they only accelerate the suicidal ideation. Yes?
They only act to try and tell us that there's a allegedly right way to have a body. And if you don't occupy that space and have that body, then you're a piece of shit.
Looks like Sid's thinking it too.
Which is absolute nonsense. And there are way too many women and men in the world who end up doing terrible things to themselves because they fall into this trap of thinking that you have to be this way. And if you aren't this way, then there's something inherently wrong at your core, which is nonsense. You're perfect the way you are.
As such, you don't need to change, right? You don't need to go across from yourself. You don't need to go beyond yourself. You don't need to go to the other side of you. What is the word I'm looking for?
That's literally the core of it. You are perfect the way you are. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is feeding into this industry and is just, they are not your friend or looking out for you.
I approve of this message. Not that you're perfect the way you are. Nobody's perfect. You could be the best in the world at something and there will still be room for improvement. That's one of the true beauties of being alive and breathing. There is no limit to self-improvement. The point is, it's something that graduates by infinitesimally small measures, day by day, hour by hour, as you grind away at your passions. Self-improvement is on a sliding scale. It is not something that you simply toggle on. Anyone who tells you that you can simply flip a switch and become something else entirely is lying to you. Quite nefariously lying to you. They're not trying to help you. They're trying to erase an aspect of your essence that cannot be erased. Even if they are doing it by removing an aspect of your physical form that cannot be replaced. Are we on the same page? I do hope so. I might even pray so. All right, moving on to the final segment.
I want to
Based
move
on our
on to a different
background.
topic. I want to talk about Me Too and sort of this social movement that we're living through right now. What is the state of feminism sort of in this post-Me Too era?
The state of feminism is an absolute state. I mean, Exhibit A.
obviously the state of feminism is very much reflected right in this room.
Uh-huh.
There is no post-Me Too, right?
No, there will never be a post-Me Too. Feminists don't have an exit plan for anything they do. The Equal Pay Act happened in 1963. 60 years later, and they're still pretending that women get paid less for the same jobs. They can make it illegal for men to talk to women in the street, for men to look at women in the street, and they will still claim that society normalizes harassment of women. As long as men and women exist, there will always be interactions between men and women, and whatever those interactions are, they will inevitably be encompassed into the rubric of what they call sexual harassment of women. You see, there's nothing a totalitarian system clings to more ruthlessly than never-ending phenomena. That's why your governments and your mass media want you deathly afraid of the common cold and the weather. Because these things last forever, and so they can be used to control you forever. The thing is, masculinity won't last forever. Not as we know it. We're moving into a future in which masculine identity will be a thing of the past. Any insinuation that masculinity does exist will be called, that's right, misinformation and disinformation. It will be called science denial, and it will be just as stigmatized and forbidden as Holocaust denial. If you don't think it can happen, that's why it will happen. Incrementally. One bite-sized lie at a time. Because fuck all you junkies and fuck your short memories. You'll be too puffed up on hopium to even notice that it's happening. You'll be in your pod, freebasing all those white pills, still telling yourself that feminism is dying and that we're winning, boys! That would be the last surviving element of the masculine archetype. Your addiction to convincing yourself that you're in charge, that you have power and dominion over others, while in reality the only people with real power will be those who convince themselves they have none. That's how it works in the fiery pits of Gnostic hell that we're creating on Earth. We need to snap out of it, guys. We need to get over it. All of us. And I think we can. I'm not confident, but I think there's an outside chance. That's my hopium. That's what keeps me doing this. My faith in humanity hasn't completely disappeared, but it's certainly dormant. The events of the last 3 years have made it very difficult to maintain any faith in humanity, now that we've seen just how incandescently naive people can be en masse. How easy it is to trick them into just walking the plank in lockstep. Things are going to get worse. A lot worse. Unspeakably worse. And we're not even going to remember how it got that bad. We'll write stories about it, and future generations won't believe us. But some of us will rise from the ashes of our collapsed society into the wasteland of a new dark age. We'll begin the cycle over again. We'll slowly develop infrastructures, we'll rediscover technology, we'll rebuild a better life through chemistry, and then we'll get lazy and decadent. We'll forget who we are, and once again we'll hand over the reins of civilization to an insatiable, snot-nosed woman-child cult who will callously implode everything we built. Repeat ad infinitum. There's no telling how many cycles it's going to take, how many millennia of death and rebirth we'll have to go through as a species before we can finally retain enough information to remember why this keeps happening, why we keep screwing ourselves over. We're already quite close to the truth. We're just not gendering it honestly. So, here it is. Bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak women. Weak women create bad times. If you're listening to this or reading it 10,000 years from now, please, I know it sounds like misogyny, but please try and remember. See if you can stop simping for 2 seconds and break the cycle. There could be wondrous things in your future instead of just an endless wheel within a wheel of woman-made horrors beyond your comprehension. This message is brought to you by a healthily balanced diet of black pills and white pills, of hopium-soaked rags, and a reasonable amount of good old-fashioned forgetting juice. Stay hydrated. Drink responsibly. Good luck, Godspeed, and don't let the bastards grind you down.
Like, our opinions don't fucking matter.